If there was an award for nonsensical writing, I honestly gotta say, this writing team should take it. Like, they've done a phenomenal job throughout the rest of the series, and they even bring it up a whole nother level in this episode. Like, I didn't think you could make it any worse in this episode compared to what we've seen the last couple, but dear lord, they just do a fantastic job just completely destroying everything, making characters' decisions make no sense at all. Prime example of this. So, the Sith Lord, he's blowing through the Jedi left, right, and center, and he's got Varda down, and he's about to take him out, and Asha, she comes over and fires a stun ray at the Sith Lord, which hits him and doesn't work on him. Side note on that, how the heck does that not work on? We've seen it work on everybody. In fact, within this episode, we see it work on May, and we see it work on Sol. So, why is he immune to the stun ray except for plot reasons? That's pretty much the only reason why. Like, yes, they're trying to make it seem like, oh, he's just a badass. He can take this hit. But for me, it's just like, no, you're breaking the laws of the universe. If it's a stun gun, it doesn't matter who you are. You should be pretty much fried from getting hit by that. He should have forced himself out of the way and then gone after Osha and killed her. But nope, he tanks it and he turns away from Varda, who's on the ground, heavily injured, and is about to die, and he starts coming to Osha, and he's about to slaughter her until Sol arrives and starts fending him off, who then orders Varda to take Osha back to the ship to get the civilians out of there, which he does reluctantly, but, you know, he's heavily injured, he can't do much more in this fight, and Osha, if you were to stay there, you die. Like, I'm sorry, there's nothing really you can do at this point. So the pair of them leave to head for the ship to get out of there to notify the Jedi that this dark figure is attacking them on the Wookiees planet. Now, as this fight between Sol and the Dark Lord is going on, we get cut over to May, who's still in the Wookiees' house, who's trying to escape, and then all of a sudden the Padawan bursts through the door to arrest May. Now, May fights back and almost kills the Padawan several times here, which is weird because the whole reason why she's in this scenario right now is she wanted to surrender to the Jedi to then go see her sister to confess everything that's going on. So why are you fighting against the Jedi? Why aren't you just like, wait, I surrender? Yes, I admit that I did wrong, but hey, you have to go help your master right now. That dude out there, he's going to slaughter everyone like he has just had. He's going to kill your master right now. We have to go help him. But instead, she tries to fight back, but eventually she gets cuffed by the Padawan who drags her out of the hut. Like, it's weird. Like, this was your whole point of going to the hut and betraying the apothecary. Like, why are you doing this? It just makes no sense. But you know what? It's staying congruent with Star Wars that she betrayed him for no reason, and now she's fighting against the Jedi for no reason. Why? Plot. We have to move the plot along. It has to do certain things, but I don't even know if we can even call it a plot anymore. It's just the showrunners trying to move a story in some direction, trying to keep the motion, trying to keep the action flowing. It's just bad in my opinion. Now, as May is leaving with the Padawan, the Master is able to disengage with Sol, and he heads off to go hunt down May and the Padawan. Now, when he comes upon them, the Padawan's able to fend off the Dark Lord. Somehow, don't ask me how she's able to fend him off for a little bit, because she should have died instantly, but she's able to fend him off for a little bit before he completely just manhandles her. But he doesn't kill her. He just leaves her be, and he goes after May, who had then escaped in the exchange. Now, he catches up with her pretty easily, and instead of killing her, he slices through her cuffs, and then he tries to go kill her. But before he can do that, Sol shows up, saves her life, and starts fighting against the Dark Lord. Now, at that exact same time, the Padawan shows up, and they start fighting him together. Why do you save May? Yes, maybe you can argue that he has some guilt for what happened 17 years ago, but she is his apprentice. Bad guys fighting bad guys. Let the bad guy take her out, in my opinion. But regardless, Sol and the Padawan are trying to fight him, and they're doing an okay job. In fact, at one point, the Padawan's even able to get the helmet off of the Sith Lord by elbowing him, where she could just slice his head off, but you know what, we'll leave that be. Now, one thing I was mentioned that is interesting about this fight is that apparently he has a gauntlet and a helmet that's made out of some kind of material that can short circuit lightsabers. From what I know, that is from the EU. I don't know too much about it. I didn't read those books. It's just from what I've heard online. And it's interesting, but just having it come out of place randomly just so you can show off this ability to short circuit lightsabers, it's kind of lame. Like, it would be one thing if this whole series was wrapped around this material, hunting it down, trying to safeguard it, that someone has been raiding warehouses, collections, trying to gather this material up, and thus try and build a suit of armor. That would be interesting. If you made the whole show about that, trying to track down who is doing these crimes and Jedi investigating that, okay, that's great, because then we could have a nice long explanation of what this material is, what it can do, and why it's so dangerous that it can short circuit lightsabers. But no, we as the audience are just left in the dark, like, wait, why does this matter? How is this possible? Like, I know that Mandalorian armor can stop lightsabers, or at least deflect them, but what is this that can completely shut down a lightsaber the moment it contacts it? That's just my opinion. I would really, really like it if they would have gone into at least some explanation before they showed us this. Because as a viewer, it's just like, so you gave him some kind of magical armor that deflects lightsaber from? Great. So is he really that great at lightsaber duels? Maybe. From what we're seeing, he's pretty good. But in that case, why isn't he just deactivating Soul and the Padawan's lightsaber with his gauntlet and helmet and immediately going in for the kill on them? The only thing I can think of is that we just want to fluff up this episode, get those lightsaber combat in. And for the people who are saying that this is the greatest lightsaber duels ever, I can barely even see half of the duels. When he's fighting those Jedi, all I see is him stabbing a couple Jedi here and not really duels. The trees are covering up most of the fights, and the fights that he has with the Padawan doesn't make sense for what we just saw with those Jedi Knights. I'm sorry, but a Padawan does not have more skill in combat than Jedi Knights. So she should have died right away, but she didn't. Soul as a master, okay, maybe I can understand more of why he's able to fend them off and have a little bit more fight with the Sith Lord than what's going on right now. Now, eventually, the Padawan does get lucky. She punches his helmet that sends it flying off. And the moment that she does that, though, she gets stabbed in the chest 3 times. So, you know, in Star Wars, when you get stabbed once, that was enough to kill you. Well, now that we have shows like Reva and Boba Fett and other shows where getting stabbed by a lightsaber doesn't mean you're dead. Where in the prequels, yes, that means you're dead. If you get stabbed by a lightsaber, it burns your insides and you're dead. But I guess not in Disney Star Wars. So we had to stab him 3 times in order to kill you. So with that, that's the end of Padawan. Honestly, I didn't feel much when she died. Like, it's a little bit sad, maybe, but I didn't really like the character that much. She was too much a girl boss. She didn't show enough respect to her master, who was Varda. She would always seem to disregard his opinions and was pretty rude to him. So when she passed away, I didn't really care that much. Master Soul, he did care. He's like, how could you kill a child? Dude, you literally brought her on a dangerous mission to go hunt down Jedi killers. I'm sorry. Why? Like, yes, you had those other, 6 Jedi Knights with you, but still, she was a young Padawan. You could make the argument that, well, didn't Obi-Wan go with Qui-Gon Jinn? Qui-Gon Jinn in Episode 1 was on a diplomatic mission that was somewhat dangerous, but they were not expecting to actually be engaging in combat. And Obi-Wan was at the stage where he was pretty much an adult. He was pretty much ready to become a Jedi Knight. So at that point, he was a full-blown Jedi and was ready to pretty much go and fight. In fact, at the end of that Episode 1 movie, we got to see him take on Darth Maul and just barely win that fight. So he was ready. Whereas his Padawan, she's very young from what we see, and there's no indication that she's about to become a Jedi Knight. So I question the validity of bringing a Padawan along on such a dangerous mission. It just brings into question Soul and Varda's decision making to bring such a young person along with them. Also, we learn at this point that the apothecary is the Dark Lord. And when Soul asks the apothecary, who are you? Why are you doing this? The apothecary, he could have gone for several areas. He's like, oh, I'm just somebody who has a deep grudge against the Jedi, or I prefer not to reveal who I am. I am just simply someone from the shadows that is acting on previous grudges. But instead, he tells him he's a Sith. Like, what the heck are you doing? Why would you say you're a Sith? That makes no sense. Because from what we know in lore, there's not been a Sith seen in 1,000 years according to Episode 1 or Episode 2. So when Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon meet Darth Maul, that's the first Sith in 1,000 years. But here we are, 100 or 200 years before Episode 1, and somehow there's a Sith out there? How does that work? That's just my question there. So at this point, Soul has to die, May has to die, everyone has to die. You still can go after Osha and Varda, but they still don't know that he's a Sith. Maybe when they report to the Jedi Council, they could maybe put two to two together that he's a Sith, but they don't have video evidence of it. So maybe Rogue Jedi, they could still have some wishy-washy there. So not really much of a threat to him there. But he has to kill Soul. Soul and May, he has to kill, because now they know for certain what he is and that he's here to clean up the mess that his apprentice caused. At this point, he re-engages his fight with Soul, and they have a little exchange going back and forth. And at this point, we have cut back over to Osha, who all of a sudden gets a sense that, oh, my sister's going to die. We have to go back and save her. No, dear God, do you not understand why Soul sent you away? You will be killed by that Sith right as soon as you get there. You cannot fight against him. Varda is in no condition to fight. He's heavily injured. He's just trying to guard you and get back to the ship as soon as possible. But no, Osha, she thinks she has a plan. She lights up her flashlight, shines into the trees where those bugs are, and they rush back to the fight. Like, at this point, Varda, your mission is to get Osha back to the ship and report to the Jedi what's happened, that there's been a massacre, that there's this dark Jedi at the very least that's causing this massive kerfuffle, that he's killed several of the Jedi that were sent out here, and now there needs a full-on manhunt for the Jedi to hunt down this individual and figure out why he's targeting the Jedi. That's your primary mission. But instead, Varda, for some reason, is convinced to follow Osha back to Soul. Like, I'm sorry, at this point, Soul, you're dead. May, you're dead. Like, there's nothing you can do. You guys saw that fight that just happened. There's no way you're going to be able to defeat the Sith Lord. But somehow Varda agrees with her, and they head back to join the fight against the Sith Lord. Now, at this point, Soul is still fighting against the Sith Lord, and he's decided to use May as a hostage. For a Force grabs her over and brings his lightsaber up to May's head, which for some reason causes Soul to stop. Yes, I understand, Soul, you feel guilt for what happened 17 years ago, but she's a Sith, he's a Sith Lord, time to kill them both. Like, I'm sorry, but that's what the case is. She's killed 2 Jedi. The fact that you're not rushing forward to end the Sith Lord at this point really makes me question why. I mean, May, she's dead. She's betrayed her master. She's getting what she deserves. I feel nothing for the death of May. I personally hope that she dies. But for some reason, Soul stops, and the Sith Lord orders Soul to toss away his weapon, which he does. And they have a conversation. I forget about it, what it is exactly right now on the top of my head. It doesn't really matter for me. But he says something along the lines of why he's going to kill her, because she betrayed him. She's a worthless apprentice. So he has to now kill everybody here and start fresh. Pretty much is what the gist of it. And before he can do that, though, Varda and Osha arrive on the scene to stop him. And Varda, for his credit, he actually does a smart move. He uses the Force, grabs the helmet, and uses that to shut down the Sith Lord's lightsaber so that they can have a proper fight. Unfortunately, it doesn't last all that long for Varda. He then pretty much gets instantly killed after that, with getting his head jerked to the right by a move from the Sith Lord. So he doesn't really last all that long. But at this point, at least now, the Sith Lord, his lightsabers are now deactivated. And at this point, Soul wants to go forward and kill the Sith Lord because, well, he's killed Jackie, he's killed Varda, and he's killed a whole bunch of other Jedi. So you could say he's letting a little bit of hate overwhelm him at this point. So maybe this would lead him down a darker path. Maybe. But at the same time, this is a Sith Lord. You gotta take him out. But for whatever reason, Osha tells him to stop. I mean, I know I just voiced the reason why, but still, I don't know if that would stop me from going forward. Because you know, at the moment that his lightsaber comes back online, he's going to go ahead and start killing Soul. And pretty much states that right away. That's what he's planning to do. But before we can do that, Osha rushes forward, jams her light into the back of the Sith, and goes back over to the side of Soul. And somehow she didn't die from that maneuver. Like, why didn't he just reach out, use the Force, and grab her and Force choke her? because as far as we can tell, Osha doesn't have very much grasp of the Force yet, but is very inconsistent on this show on who has Force abilities, how they're used, and why they use them. It's just all over the place, so I don't even really question it anymore at this point. Now, with her jamming that light into his back, the bugs that are in the air that were so nice to just wait for as long as they had finally descend and start attacking him. And this is another dumb part for me. Like, you had the lightsabers on just a few moments ago. Why did the bugs wait until your light got shoved down the dude's back to finally start descending? Like, they should have saw the lightsabers and dive bomb him. Like, that's why they went after Sol in the previous episode, because he had his lightsaber turned on. So why does that still work here? Reason: plot. We gotta keep the story moving, people, even if we're breaking the canon within our own universe one episode later. It doesn't matter. We can just play with it as long as we're telling a story. Universe rules don't matter. That's pretty much what we know here. And in fact, I believe Dave Filoni has even said at one point that you can break canon as long as you tell a good story. Well, you've broken canon several times throughout the show, and I can't say you've been telling a good story. Sorry, that's just my opinion. Now, for whatever reason, these bugs overwhelm the Sith Lord, even though you have a lightsaber. Cut them to parts. Like, all you have to do is just slice off their heads, slice through their bodies. There's nothing there that can stop you. But somehow the bugs are able to overwhelm him, take him up to the air, and we'd have no idea what happens to him after that. Presumably, he dies. But come on, you can't just kill a character off like that. But regardless, the bugs take him off to a nest, I guess, to eat him and finish him off. But we'll see how well that works. Now, as that's happening, Sol gets shot in the back by a stun gun by May, who is now aiming at Osha. And Osha puts her hands up and she goes and has a nice-ish conversation with May. And during this conversation, we hear from May that Osha's been brainwashed by the Jedi, and she goes forward and hugs her sister. And Osha, she just cries at this. She's like, "Oh, my sister, I'm so happy to see you, but you are a murderer. You caused destruction. This is all because of you." And we're getting the sense that it was the Jedi who implanted false memories. Like, it has to be false memories. It has to be the Jedi implanted false memories within Osha, which is why she remembers episode 3 and why May is saying that's wrong. But she doesn't really say, like, you've been brainwashed by the Jedi. They ended up killing our coven. They stole you away from us. It's all their fault. She doesn't say anything like that. All she says is that you were brainwashed by the Jedi. And after a touching hug of sorts, she then force pushes her sister off an edge, which causes her to hit her head and causing her to go unconscious. At that point, May then walks over to her, says, like, you always were bad at blocking, takes out her lightsaber, and cuts her hair off. Now she looks like Osha. I got a couple issues with that. First off, you're not going to get a good cut with that. Like, I'm sorry. There's no reason why May's hair would look like Osha at this point. Like, for one, the ends would be burnt, so anyone who would look at you would know right away, like, why did you cut your hair with your lightsaber? And two, it would not come out as even as it has, but fine, we'll just let that movie magic go. We then switch it back over to Sol, seeing that he's finally waking up from the stun to see Osha coming back to him, offering her hand to help him up. Now, we know that Osha is May in disguise, but Sol seems to take it that, oh, this is just Osha, so everything's good. Let's go and get out of here and report back to the Jedi Temple. Now, let me pause right here. Sol should not be accepting her right away for a couple reasons. First off, number one, your hair. Like, it's cut. You should be smelling smoke. You should be obviously seeing it was cut with a lightsaber. You should be questioning, why did you cut your hair with a lightsaber? So, I mean, that's not really the first one, but I just have to get that out of the way. Like, come on, what the heck's going on there? Two, you have the symbol from when you're young still tattooed here. So maybe you could cover it up with some dirt or something, but as far as I can tell, nothing like that was done. So she still has that tattoo birthmark there, which her dreads are barely covering up. So Sol should have easily seen that this isn't Osha, this is May. And third, and finally, and the most important one, the sense of a Jedi. So he's a Jedi Master. He should be sensing the Force. He should just be able to look at May and just tell, like, you're not Osha. Like, yes, they are twins, but let's just remember here, May has killed at least 2 people that we know of. She's gone down a darker path, So he should feel a darker sense coming from her, a more malice sense, and a sense for revenge and crazy emotions that he should be like, okay, you are not Osha, you are May in Osha's clothes. What have you done with Osha? So he should know off right the bat. But the fact that he just accepts her, like, oh yeah, let's head back to the ship. Like, maybe you can argue that he's a little bit dazed, but he's a giant master. He's coming back to his senses, and he should be able to just assess the situation and realize something's wrong here. This isn't Osha. What's going on? I gotta go find the real Osha. But he accepts her and takes her off to the ship. Now, some may say, like, oh, the writers, they're playing that he knows this isn't the real Osha, but he wants to talk with May, figure out what she knows, what's going on, and see if he can help her come back to the light side of the Force. I highly doubt that, because knowing the showrunners, they flip-flop characters' decisions, they change the storylines, they change the whole universe and how things work on a flip of a dime. So I'm going to put that as not the case, and just that Soul is really just that dumb, that he's allowed his emotions to cloud his judgment, and now he can't even sense his own pupil, who he has worked with for a very long time and has been reacquainted with, so he should have the sense of her once more, is now confusing her with her dark sister who has murdered people. Yeah, I'm going to have to take a big step and say I really disagree with that, but this is Disney Star Wars, so it doesn't really matter at this point. Now, as Soul and May head back to the ship, we get to see that little gopher guy who's been running around. Somehow he hasn't died yet, but he's scampering after them back onto the giant ship, and if I could just speculate for a little bit, that's how they're going to find out that's not the real Osha. He's going to sniff her, point, and screech. And that's how they're going to realize, like, oh, you're May. Not through the Force, not through, my own kind of know-how, but we're going to have to use this little furball that should have died to reveal that you're actually May, not Osha. Ugh. Now, for Osha's part, she's still unconscious on the planet, but no worries. The Sith Lord, he is able to kill all those bugs, return, and is able to find her. Now, very creepily, he takes his cloak and covers her with it. So he's not going after May anymore. He's now taking Osha into his care, supposedly either as a hostage or as maybe another apprentice. And the fact that he's not going after May tells me that this was planned by the two of them, which is pretty nonsensical in my opinion. Like, what's going on here? Like, you should be going after your apprentice at this point. Like, okay, I understand covering May, but you should be picking her up like a sack of potatoes and booking it to your ship to then go hunt down May. As I said, the show doesn't make any sense, at least not to me. Now, what do I think is going to happen in the next episode? I think in the next episode, they're going to try to reach out to the Jedi Temple and tell them what's going on and report that there's a Sith that's alive, or at least a Dark Jedi. Maybe the transmission's going to be cut by Osha May. Maybe, I doubt it. I mean, they've broken canon every single moment, so I don't really see why they wouldn't break canon at this point too. Like, they don't really care. This is Disney Star Wars. It's not real Star Wars. So, at least that's my opinion. So, maybe it has one redeeming factor, and it's revealed to us that the Sith Lord that we've been seeing isn't actually the Sith Lord, that he's actually the Acolyte, that he has a Sith Master. Because, let's just be honest here, he's way too young to be an actual Sith Lord. He has to be an apprentice to someone else. And I've heard some theories on it could either be Lindsay Headland's wife, who's the green alien back at the Jedi Temple. She could be a Jedi Master, but I personally doubt it. Someone embedded in the Jedi that long, I really doubt you're able to hide your presence as well. I mean, Palpatine did it, but he was an exception. He was a fantastic Force user. He was above every Jedi and every Sith that came before him, so he's kind of the exception of the rules. Now, then again, we've seen them break canon a lot of times here, but I don't think they're going to do that with this one. Now, another theory I heard is that it could be one of her moms that's the Sith Lord, because she even mentions in this episode that her mom had the ability to get into somebody's mind, especially Jedi's, kind of like the way the Sith Lord was. So maybe one of her moms is still alive. That's very possible. So I'm looking forward to see how that takes place in the next couple episodes, to see who the real master is. But I'll leave that up to speculation at this point, but I'm probably leaning towards one of her moms is probably still alive. Probably the black one is probably alive and is the actual Sith Master, if I had to guess. But that's at least my opinion. Now, you guys let me know what you think of this episode. Was this a fantastic episode? Did you guys love it, or do you agree with me that it was another trash fire that was even worse than the previous ones? Let me know down in the comment section below. Leave a like or dislike if you didn't like it, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the next one. Y'all take care now. Oh, and subscribe. All right, take care now. Bye.